Hello everybody and welcome back to the NFL predictions for 2017. This is week 2 review, week 3 predictions, and after 2 weeks of predictions, we are looking great. In week number 1, we went 12-3, and we followed that up with a 13-3 performance last week. That puts us at 25-6 overall, picking these NFL games this year. And just for the record, as I mentioned, I put all my picks in on ESPN Pick'em because it's just an easy way to keep track of them. It's an easy way to show you guys my picks, everything like that. And I have 25 right, as I said, and the ESPN average after 2 weeks is 16. So the average person has a record of 16-15. While I am sitting at a record of 25-6. Toot toot of my own horn. Thank you very much. So let's just jump into last week and break down all of these picks that we had. The first game was the Cincinnati Bengals at home on Thursday Night Football against the Houston Texans. Me and 66% of people on ESPN.com fell into the trap that was the Cincinnati Bengals. They didn't look good in week 1 against the Ravens, which I said they wouldn't. That's why I picked them to lose. Well, I didn't expect them to be that bad, but I didn't expect them to be a very good team this year. I picked them to lose against the Ravens. And then the Texans looked terrible in week 1, so I figured the Bengals would get it done at home, primetime. No can do. They still don't have a touchdown. Bengals look way worse. I said in my first video before week 1 that I thought they would win 6 or 7 games. And then I said in week 2 I was going to change that to 5 games. And now I'm thinking I might want to change that to 3 games. 3 or 4 games. That's how bad they've looked after 2 games. So we got that one wrong. Really nothing to talk about in this game. It turned into yet another Thursday night clunker. These games are awful. They have a long history of being awful. 1 touchdown in the game. Texans win 13-9. Just nothing for these teams. Andy Dalton looked terrible. He didn't throw an interception. Sean Watson didn't do anything through the air. Only 125 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions. He had that really nice run, which was the only touchdown of the game. But yeah, other than that, just nothing doing for either team. Each had under 300 yards, just a very boring game. So let's just jump into the next one. It was the Buffalo Bills going on the road to take on the Panthers. I thought it was a pretty easy pick. I said if the Panthers looked like the team that they were last year, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bills won. But luckily for them, their defense looked pretty darn good, and the Bills couldn't do anything. So even though there was 0 touchdowns in this game, the Panthers end up winning 9-3. Just a really bad week in the NFL in terms of scoring. Again, nothing to really dive into on this game because nothing happened. So that saves my voice at least. So we got that pick right after missing out on the Bengals game. Then that brings us to the Bears at the Buccaneers. I said the Bucs would win. I don't remember if I went into detail about whether or not I thought it would be a significant win. But they end up winning 29-7, and the Bears didn't end up scoring until 1:43 left in the game to make it 29-7. And I was very happy about that because for some reason the night before the game I was looking at some bets online, and something just compelled me to throw $1. I just put $1 that the Buccaneers would win this game by 18 to 22 points. There was, there's all these margins you can choose who wins. You can say Bears or Buccaneers win by 0-3 or 1-3 points or 4-7 and all sorts of that. And obviously the higher the margin, the more likely it is. So, and I don't know, for some reason I just thought I'm going to throw the $1 that the Bucs win this game by 18 to 22 points. And it wasn't looking very good. The Bears went down and looked like they might score near the end. They go for it on 4th down, can't get it done. I turned it off, or I stopped paying attention at that point. I figured, whatever, I lost my bet. Would have been nice. But then they end up scoring with 1:43 left in the game, and I won $7.50 off a $1 bet. So a pretty good return there. If only I put $10 on it. Then I won $75. Oh well. So we got that one right. And next up was again, nothing to talk about in this game. It was all Buccaneers. Bears still aren't a very good team. They actually kept up with the Buccaneers in terms of total yardage and first downs and stuff like that, but they had 4 turnovers to the Buccaneers, 1. Mike Glennon, 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles on the day as well for the Bears. And then we had my second of 3 picks that I got wrong. I went out on a limb, took a big underdog. I thought the Browns would get it done against the Ravens. I said the Browns would play a lot of people close this year. I figured this might be the game that they get it done. Divisional opponent, rivalry game. Maybe coming off of feeling pretty good about how they played against the Steelers. Maybe catch the the Ravens napping, but it didn't happen. It was close for a little bit. It was 14-7 until the very last play of the half when the Ravens went up 21-7. And those always seem to be a killer. A score at the very end of a half always seems like whoever got that score, if it was to either take the lead or tie a game or even come back within to 1 score, it always seems like they end up winning. The Ravens go on to win 24-10. Cleveland actually outgained Baltimore 386-335, but the problem is they also turned the ball over more than them. They turned it over 5 times to the Ravens 2, so 7 turnovers in this game. Pretty ugly. Deshaun Kaiser goes 15 for 31, for 182 yards, 0 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, He had a QBR, which I hate QBR, but I'm looking at the box score on ESPN, so whatever. He had a QBR of 3.7. Not good. Joe Flacco, he was all right. Threw 217, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 25 for 34. Then we had the Titans and Jaguars. I said last week in the video that this game disgusted me to even look at. It still does. I picked the Titans to win. They won 37-16. Blake Bortles sucks, and that's all we need to talk about in this one. Then we had the Cardinals going on the road to take on the Colts. I incorrectly said that Indianapolis was in the Central Time Zone. I looked it up after. It was actually in the Eastern. Anyway, Cardinals win 16-13. I picked them to win because the Colts are awful, and it looks like the Cardinals might be awful too. This game actually went to overtime, and for a long time it looked like the Colts would win. The score was actually 13-3 halfway through the 4th quarter. The Cardinals end up tying it up, and they end up winning in overtime off of a field goal after each team had the ball. Both teams' offenses were terrible. Arizona actually outgained the Colts by quite a bit, 389-266. Each team turned it over. Jacoby Brissett was 20 for 37, 216, 1 interception for the Colts. Carson Palmer, not that great after week 1. A little better, but couldn't be much worse. He went 19 for 36, 1 touchdown, 1 interception in this game. I think the Cardinals are in trouble without David Johnson. Anyway, we got the pick right, although not quite how we expected it. Then we had the Eagles going on the road to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. I picked the Chiefs to win, which they did. Pretty good game. Went back and forth. Chiefs went up in the 4th with back-to-back touchdowns to go up 14. And the Eagles tack on a garbage time touchdown late to make it look closer than it was. But for the majority of the game, it was close. It was a good game. Philly outgained the Chiefs 406-344. Time of possession was even. Philly had 27 first downs to the Chiefs 16. But what do you know? Turnovers, 2 for the Eagles, none for the Chiefs. Alex Smith was 21 for 28, 251 and a touchdown. Pretty much what you can expect from him. Not a lot of yardage per completion, but not too many mistakes either. Carson Wentz went 25-46, 333 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. And Kareem Hunt backs up his great debut with an 81-yard game rushing on only 13 carries and 2 touchdowns. He also had 28 yards receiving on 3 catches. So we got the pick right on that one, which brings us to the next game, Minnesota Vikings against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I didn't like the Vikings' chances on the road against Pittsburgh, especially when Sam Bradford suddenly didn't play and Case Keenum was the Vikings quarterback. Pretty easy pick, I thought, even with Sam Bradford, made even easier without. Keenum in his place goes 20 for 37 for 167 yards, no touchdowns, no turnovers. Roethlisberger, 23 for 36, 2 touchdowns, 243. Vikings couldn't do anything on offense. They only had 237 yards. They turned it over once with a fumble. And it was just all Steelers. They just cruised to victory. They went up 14-0. Vikings kick a field goal. The closest the Vikings ever got was within 8 with 10 minutes left, but the Steelers quickly extended their lead with a field goal and then tacked on 2 more to end up winning 26-9. Then we had the New England Patriots going on the road against the New Orleans Saints. I told you that the Saints defense sucks, and I told you that Tom Brady would absolutely pick apart the Saints, and they would win this game easily. They won by 16, so not super easily. I did exaggerate a little last week. I said the Patriots would drop 50. Wouldn't have surprised me if they did, but I wasn't actually expecting that. Drew Brees had a pretty good game. No interceptions, 356 yards, 2 touchdowns, 27 for 45. And Tom Brady, as I said, he would pick apart the terrible Saints defense, which he does. He goes 30 for 39, 447 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Gronkowski, 6 catches, 116 yards, and a touchdown. Just an all-around nice performance. No rushing yet again for the Saints. Patriots had 555 yards against the Saints defense. I mean, they were going up against Drew Brees, but they didn't look good against Alex Smith either. The Patriots gave up 429 yards of their own on defense. Neither defense forced a turnover. So, Patriots defense not looking too hot either after 2 games. But we got this pick right. It'll be interesting to see if the Patriots D can tighten up as the season progresses. And in the next game, one of the team that they play twice might help them out with that. It was the New York Jets. They go on the road to take on the Raiders. We took the Raiders to win. Pretty easy selection. They end up winning 45-20. Jets failed to reach 300 yards of offense. Raiders had 410. Jets turned it over twice. Derek Carr had a great game. 23 for 28. 230 yards. 3 touchdowns. No interceptions. Josh McCown, he actually had a pretty decent game. He's 17 for 25. 166 yards. 2 touchdowns. No interceptions. But as a whole, the Jets just could not muster up enough offense to keep up with the Raiders. Raiders went up 14-0 early. It was 14-10 at one point, and then it was all Raiders from there as they cruised to a 45-20 victory. Got that pick right as well. And then we had our final of 3 incorrect picks on the week. I took the Chargers at home, coming off of a loss to beat the Dolphins in their first game, and the Chargers couldn't do it. Jay Cutler, in his Dolphins debut, goes 24 for 33, 230 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. Come on, Chargers. Jay Cutler throws an interception every quarter. Phillip Rivers goes 31-39, 331 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions. Decent game for him. The ground game really was the difference. The Chargers just had no rushing game at all. They only ran the ball 14 times for 44 yards. Meanwhile, the Dolphins picked up 111 yards rushing. And I can't say the fucking dude's name. Ajayi had 122 of those yards. So, yeah, you do the math. The other 3 people that carried the ball for the Dolphins had a combined negative 11 yards. So this game ended up being 19-17 Dolphins. Pretty ugly. The Chargers were up for the majority of the game. They took a 10-3 lead in the second quarter. Then they had a tie game for a while. They retook the lead halfway through the third to go up 17-10. The Dolphins chip away with 2 field goals and don't end up taking the lead until 1 minute left when Cody Parkey hits a 54-yard field goal to take the 19-17 lead, which they hang on to. Then we had the Cowboys going on the road to take on the Denver Broncos. I told you last week, I'm not convinced that the Cowboys are some dominant, great team like ESPN wants you to believe. So I said, go into Denver and win a game like this, and I might start picking you. And not only did that not happen, they got absolutely destroyed by the Broncos. Broncos win 42-17. Dak Prescott 30 for 50, 238 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He looked like absolute crap. Speaking of absolute crap, Ezekiel Elliott carries the ball 9 times for only 8 yards with a long of 5. So that means he carried the ball 8 other times for 3 yards. Nice job there. Jason Witten led the Cowboys with 10 catches for 97 yards and a touchdown. Meanwhile, Trevor Siemian goes 22 for 32, 231 yards, 4 touchdowns and an interception. Great game by him. CJ Anderson, 118 yards on 25 carries and a touchdown. He had over twice as many yards, almost 3 times as many yards as the Cowboys had as a team rushing. The Broncos jumped out early to a 7-0 lead, actually stayed that way for a long time. Cowboys ended up tying it with 12 minutes to go in the second quarter. And then near the end of the half, the Broncos took a 21-7 lead, go into half with a 21-10 lead, add 2 more touchdowns in the third quarter. Cowboys respond with a touchdown at the beginning of the fourth, and then Aqib Talib has a interception, returned 103 yards to make the final score 42-17. Yeah, just not good at all for the Cowboys. Not a good game. And their performance against the Giants last week, or the week before, not looking as great either. So pretty interesting in the NFC East and in the NFC in general. Speaking of which, that brings up our next game, which was the Washington Redskins at the Los Angeles Rams. And for some reason, I mentioned it last week, 66% of people picked the Rams to win this game. What the hell are you doing, people? Yeah, the Redskins didn't look good against the Eagles. Yeah, the Rams looked good against the Colts. I told you last week that meant nothing. It was the Colts. And that the Redskins would beat the Rams this week, which they did, 27-20. Little close, but the Rams are not that team that you saw against the Colts. That's a team playing against the Colts without Andrew Luck. Relax, people. Anyway, Redskins went up 13-0 in the second quarter. The Rams end up tying the game with 7 minutes to go off of a field goal to make it 20-20. And the Redskins end up taking the lead with 1:50 left, 27-20 from a touchdown from Kirk Cousins to Ryan Grant. The Rams followed up their great offensive performance last week against the Colts with 332 yards and 2 turnovers in this game, only 14 first downs. Meanwhile, the Redskins had 385 yards of offense, 21 first downs, 36 minutes of possession, no turnovers. Jared Goff, who looked great against the Colts, looks like crap against the Redskins. He goes 15 for 25, 224, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Kirk Cousins, 18 for 27, 179, 1 touchdown. So not a lot through the air for either team, but the rushing game, again, makes a difference as the Washington Redskins pick up 229 yards rushing. They had 3 rushers all over 60 yards. The leading rusher was Kelly with 78. And how about Chris Thompson? 3 carries, 77 yards, 2 touchdowns with a long of 61. So we got the pick right in that one, which brings us to San Francisco 49ers going on the road to take on the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks do not look great after 2 weeks. They lost to the Packers in the opening week, and then they had to win a dogfight against the dreadful 49ers with only 1 touchdown at home. They took a 6-0 lead off of field goals. It was tied by halftime. Then the 49ers actually took a 9-6 lead with 11:30 to go in the game. And then eventually the Seahawks finally get on board with a touchdown with 7 minutes left, and they hang on to win. Awful game. Not a lot to talk about. Somehow the 49ers stayed in it. They had a turnover. They didn't even reach 250 yards of offense. They barely had over 20 minutes of possession. They only had 11 first downs. Seahawks actually had decent offensive numbers. They just couldn't get in the end zone, had to settle for a lot of field goals. Russell Wilson didn't play very good. Brian Hoyer for the 49ers played awful. Carlos Hyde had a great game rushing for the 49ers. He had 124 yards on 15 carries. And yeah, just an ugly game. Seahawks don't look very good. Not sure what to expect out of the NFC West because, as I said last week, nobody in this division looks good right now. It looks very bad. You might see another 7-9 NFC West champion like the year the Seahawks beat the Saints in the playoffs. Brian Hoyer, by the way, 15 for 27 for only 99 yards and an interception. Gross. Got that pick right. We also got this other pick right. Again, this was another one where I was ripping the people on ESPN.com for picking the team that they picked. 55% of people picked the Packers to go into Atlanta and beat the Falcons. Are you nuts? Like, they watch week 1 and they're like, oh, the Packers beat the Seahawks at home. Let's not think of that. In a game that looked ugly, let's not think of that. Oh, and the Falcons almost lost to the Bears on the road. And it really wasn't that close if you watch the game. But now the Packers are going to beat the Falcons. Even though it's Sunday Night Football, opening a brand new arena, hanging a banner for your NFC Championship in your home opener. There was no way the Packers were winning this game. No way. They end up losing 34-23. Actually a pretty even offensive game, but the Packers had 2 turnovers to the Falcons' 0. Aaron Rodgers had 343 yards passing with 2 touchdowns and an interception, only 33 for 50 through the air, so not a great game by him. No rushing offense to speak of for the Packers. Matt Ryan goes 19 for 28 for 252 and a touchdown. Not great, but certainly not bad. Falcons, meanwhile, pick up 141 yards rushing compared to the Packers' 59. Devontae Freeman led the way with 84 yards and 19 carries, as well as 2 touchdowns. Julio Jones, 5 catches, 108 yards. While this game was only 11 points, it was not close, just like the last time these two teams played. Falcons jumped out to a quick 7-0 lead. Packers respond near the end of the first quarter. Second quarter was all Falcons. They end up going into halftime with a 24-7 lead. They build on it early in the third, go up 31-7. Packers get a field goal. Falcons get a field goal in response. The end of the third quarter, it was 34-10 Falcons, and that was it. Packers get 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Who cares? Packers don't look good at all after 2 games. Not sure what to expect out of them. And finally, brings us to the last game from last week. My Detroit Lions. I told you guys last week, I don't pick them very often. In fact, I pick against them way more often than not. But this might change. I thought they would win. I thought they should win. But going on the road against what is supposed to be, at the very least, a wild card contender in your conference on Monday Night Football, who was 0-1, so almost fighting for their lives. You go 0-2, you are in trouble. And not only do the Lions win that game, which is a game they never win, they win it convincingly, 24-10. And I mentioned it last week, even as a Lions fan, I usually pick against them more often than not because I'm a Lions fan. I know what this team does. Like right now, this game on Monday night, one of the biggest wins, this is pathetic, one of the biggest wins of my life as a Lions fan. That's right. I'm 24 years old, and this win was one of the most impressive wins I've ever seen from this team in my life. Going on the road, Monday Night Football, in a conference game against a team that should be competing for a playoff spot. And you win it to go 2-0. Now, as a Lions fan, this looks different. There's a different feeling about this game. There's a different perception about this game. A lot of people seem to think that the Lions have turned a corner with this game. Nobody expected them to win this game. I mean, more people did pick them on ESPN.com, but as a Lions fan, nobody expected them to win this game. If you know the Lions and you know their history, you know how they play in these types of games. But also as a Lions fan, in the back of your head, you have to be thinking this team could finish 5-11 and it wouldn't surprise me. Because that's just what the Lions do. They get your hopes up and absolutely crush them. Over and over. So after 2 weeks, we're feeling great. But as a Lions fan, your expectations are always tempered. So anyway, let's just get into this game real quick. Lions win 24-10. Actually wasn't a very pretty game on offense for either teams. The Giants actually outgained the Lions 270-257. Lions won the time of possession battle, though, by 5 minutes at 32-47. Each team turned it over once. Giants off of an interception, Lions off of a fumble. Jets actually had more first downs. They had 14 to the Lions 12. Difference in the game was just the Lions' ability to get pressure on Eli Manning and win the field position battle on both defense and offense. Defense was getting the Giants off the field quickly. Offense was picking up decent yardage, or they just had short fields to work with and got in the end zone. Both the Lions' touchdown drives were on short field. One of them started on their own 46, and the other one started on the Giants' 29. So the Lions didn't have to move the ball a whole lot to get in the end zone. Their third touchdown came on a 88-yard punt return by Jamal Agnew, which really put the game away. So the Lions jump out to a 7-0 lead near the end of the first quarter. Giants respond immediately on the next drive to make it 7-7. Lions come back after turning the ball over on a fumble, immediately followed by an interception by Eli Manning. Lions go back on top with the touchdown, 14-7. Then with 30 seconds left in the half, Matt Prater drills a 56-yarder bounces off of the goal post right across the bottom bar, and then goes left and somehow still sneaks behind the left goal post. Good for a field goal. Lions go up 17-7 at half. Giants add on a field goal in the third quarter. Lions just sit on the ball because they had no confidence in the Giants doing anything. Lions had 5 sacks in this game against Eli Manning. But the Lions tack on that punt return near the beginning of the fourth quarter, which gave them a 2-touchdown lead, and that was pretty much it. Eli Manning goes 22 for 32, 239 yards, touchdown and interception. Stafford, lowest yardage he's ever thrown in a game that he's played the whole game. Only 122 yards passing, but very efficient. 15 for 21, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Again, Lions didn't have a lot of field to work with on offense because their defense was doing a good job of winning that field position battle. So the Lions, used the field that they had, scored 2 touchdowns in the first half, and then in the second half, once they got that early fourth quarter touchdown on the punt return, they just sat on the ball. They actually ran the ball for 138 yards and 32 carries. Amir Abdullah led the way, 17 carries, 86 yards. Giants only managed 62 yards rushing. Shane Vereen had 28 on 6 carries. He was the leader. Receiving, Odell Beckham. I said if Beckham was suddenly 100%, Giants win. I'm not sure it would have made a difference, though. He probably wasn't 100%, but he had 4 catches for 36 yards. Eric Ebron led the way for the Lions with 5 catches for 42 yards and a touchdown. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I got this one right. Let's just go ahead and jump into next week now. Pretty long video, as I said last week. These NFL ones may be. But the predictions should be quicker than the recaps. Not too much to dive into. I dive into all the games these teams just played, so I don't have to really rehash any of that when it comes to predictions. So the first game for this week is the Los Angeles Rams going on the road to take on the San Francisco 49ers. 2 teams that are not very good. The home team does not matter in this game because neither would have fans at the game. And the travel isn't bad. It's Thursday night, prime time, who cares? I'm just going to go with the one team that has actually showed a pulse, and that's the Rams. They put up a ton of points against the Colts, which again is the Colts. But then they managed to score 20 points last week against the Niners, who haven't done anything in 2 games offensively. So I'm going to go with the Rams on the road to beat the 49ers. Then we have the Baltimore Ravens going to London to meet up with the Jacksonville Jaguars. This game is at 9:30 in the morning, East Coast time. Yeah, this is a pretty easy pick. You got to go with the Ravens in this game. I don't think they're a great team, but they just have to be much better than the Jaguars. Basically a neutral site game. I don't see any reason why the Ravens should drop this one. And then you got maybe the game of the week right now. It is 2 of the 3 2-0 NFC teams. It's the Atlanta Falcons, defending NFC champions, going on the road to take on the Detroit Lions, my Detroit Lions. Now listen, 2 weeks ago, or even a week ago, 2 days ago, I would have taken the Falcons to win this game in a heartbeat. After what the Lions did on Monday night, unless you're a Lions fan, you don't understand how monumental that type of win was for this team. They never do that. And to win 2 games by 2 scores to open the season. Last time the Lions did that was 1980, just to give you a little bit of reference. The Falcons, we saw it in week 1 against the Bears, and we saw it a few times last year. They are a different team on the road. Ford Field is not an easy place to play. Lions went 7-1 in 2014 at Ford Field. I think they went 6-2 last year at Ford Field. Ford Field is going to be crazy. This game, I'm going with the Falcons. I'm a Lions fan, but you got to go with the Falcons in this game. But if the Lions play anything like they did in the first 2 weeks, and you know the defending NFC champion is going to be getting the best shot from pretty much everybody they play, I think the Lions could easily win this game. And I don't mean they could win it easily, I mean they could easily win it. I think it's very possible that the Lions win this game. In fact, as a Lions fan, I'm feeling pretty confident in the Lions' ability to win this game. But also, as a Lions fan, you look at this and you go, no way the Lions win this game. And that's why I'm going with the Falcons to beat the Lions. But I think this game might come down to the last possession. And this game is a real test for the Lions. You beat the Cardinals, a team who's expected to compete for a wild card at least coming into the season. You beat them, well, suddenly they suck. That's the narrative. And, with the way they played against the Colts, maybe that's true. You beat the Giants, another team who, at the very least, was supposed to be competing for a wild card in your conference. Now they suck. So here you go, Detroit. At home against the defending NFC champions. Find a way to beat them. No excuses from everybody else. Nobody's going to come out and say, the Falcons suck. No. This is a win that the Lions... This is a huge game for the Lions. And the Lions have a lot more to gain from this than the Falcons. That's another thing that makes this kind of dangerous on top of being the home team. If this was in Atlanta, I'd say Atlanta all day. But in Detroit, with the momentum that Detroit has, the energy that the fan base will have, and what seems like a huge game, I think this game is almost a toss-up. But I'm going with the Falcons, even as a Lions fan, because, again, this is just not the game the Lions usually win. Then we have the Denver Broncos going on the road to take on the Buffalo Bills. Not a lot to talk about here. Got to take the Broncos. It is on the road. It is a 1 p.m. game. So it's almost like a West Coast team going to the East Coast for a 1 o'clock game, which is never easy. But you just got to like the Broncos in this game. Might be a pretty close game, though, actually. Then you got the 2-0 Pittsburgh Steelers going on the road to take on the 0-2 Bears. I think that the Steelers are obviously likely to win this one. But these games get tricky. I know a lot of people just look at it on the surface and go, this team's better than this team. They're going to win. But A, you're going on the road to take on the Bears. And B, the Bears are 0-2, while you are 2-0. You go 0-3 in the NFL, your season is 99% done. You are basically not making the playoffs at that point. Almost impossible. So the Bears will be playing for their lives at home against a team that's feeling pretty good at 2-0. Now, that said, I still think the Steelers are going to win. But I'm just saying, look out for these types of games. Bears could make it interesting and keep it close, but I think the Steelers end up winning. And then we got the Cleveland Browns going on the road to take on the Indianapolis Colts. Colts don't look any good. They played a little better than they did against the Rams at home last week against the Cardinals. The Browns kind of regressed from their game against the Steelers when they went out and lost to the Ravens. Part of me leans towards the Browns in this game just because the Colts don't look good at all. But I picked 4 road teams to start this week. A home team's got to pick up a win. And this is a pretty even game, I think, between 2 pretty bad teams. So I'm just going to go with the home team in this case. Give me the Colts to beat the Browns. Now we got the 1-0 Miami Dolphins, who surprised me with a win. I didn't think they'd be any good, especially with Jay Cutler. But now they're going on the road to take on the 0-2 Jets. I don't care if it's on the road. Nobody should lose to the Jets this year. Somebody will, but I don't think this is the right time or circumstance. Just so you know, last year when the Browns were 0-14 or 0-15, I picked them to beat the Chargers that week. That was the only week I ever picked them because so much was lining up in their favor. Chargers sucked. It was a West Coast team playing at 1 p.m. Browns were at home, desperate for a win. Everything added up that would be the day that the Browns did it, and they did. Well, this isn't the day that the Jets do it. I'm sure at some point this season there will be a day where I think it lines up for them to do it and I'll pick them, but not yet. Dolphins over the Jets. Then we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going on the road to take on the Minnesota Vikings. This one's interesting. On the surface, I like the Vikings at home. They got a great defense, and that equalizes a lot of the playing field, no matter who your quarterback is. But I like their chances a little better with Sam Bradford. And right now, I'm not so sure he's going to play. I'm going to take the Bucs to beat the Vikings on the road. But here's a caveat. If Bradford plays, I like the Vikings. So I'll switch this up next week depending on what happens. If Bradford doesn't play, I'm rolling with the Bucs. If Bradford ends up playing, I think the Vikings win. I don't think Bradford's a great quarterback, but I think he's obviously significantly better than Case Keenum, and I think that would make a difference for these teams and who would win this game, especially at home with that defense. Then we got another easy game on the paper. Obviously, upsets happen, but we got the Houston Texans going on the road to take on the New England Patriots. Gotta like the Patriots at home against a team who struggles to score points. Houston's got a pretty good defense, but guess what? Tom Brady can score a lot of points on pretty good defenses. And while the Patriots, after 2 games, don't look like they have a great defense, they should be able to hold the Texans to less points than whatever Tom Brady can muster. So I'm going to go with the Patriots over the Texans. Then we got an NFC South battle. We got the New Orleans Saints at 0-2 going on the road to take on the 2-0 Carolina Panthers. This game, to me, 50-50. Most people are picking the Panthers. They're at home. They're 2-0. But again, you got to look out for these 0-2 teams. They're desperate to win. Drew Brees, pretty darn good. Saints defense, not. But the Panthers haven't really looked great on offense, so I'm not sure if they really take advantage of the Saints defense in this game. I think it's going to be really close. If this game was in New Orleans, I'd be taking the Saints. But since it's in Carolina, I'm actually going to go with the Panthers to hold off the Saints, go 3-0, and end the Saints season at 0-3. Speaking of seasons ending, another divisional matchup. It's an NFC East game between the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the New York Giants. Eagles 1-1, Giants 0-2. This game is another one. I'm not so sure that the Giants are awful. They look to be pretty awful on offense. I think they at least get it together a little bit this week on offense, but I just think the Eagles at home are too good of a team. I think that they end up pulling off a win, a close win, and effectively ending the Giants season as well. Then we got the Seattle Seahawks hitting the road to take on the Tennessee Titans. This is a 4 o'clock Eastern game. Underdog pick here. Give me the Titans. I'm not convinced that the Titans are any good, but I'm definitely not convinced that the Seahawks are any good. They looked brutal their first 2 weeks. On the road, not so sure that they completely right the ship. Give me the Titans in a close one. Speaking of not looking good in their first 2 games, we got a showdown between the 0-2 Bengals and the 1-1 Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. Not a whole lot to get into with this one either. Give me the Packers at home against pretty much anybody, especially the Bengals, who look absolutely terrible. Then we got the Kansas City Chiefs going on the road against the LA Chargers. Upset pick here. I'm going with the Chargers to beat the Chiefs. That's right, 2-0 Chiefs, 0-2 Chargers. Divisional rivalry. Chargers, they lose, their season's over. They're at home against a team that's feeling pretty good at 2-0. I told you to watch out for these games. I've been picking against them, but right here, I think the team with its back against the wall wins the game. Give me the Chargers over the Chiefs. Then we got Sunday Night Football. Oakland Raiders at 2-0 going on the road to take on the Washington Redskins. Redskins are 1-1. Most people here on ESPN are highly in favor of the Raiders. I like the home team in these primetime games. I'll say it every week. And I think the Raiders are definitely the better team. But again, you got another case of a team that's 2-0 going on the road to take on a team. I mean, they're 1-1, so their back's not up against the wall. But, they're feeling like they really need to start winning, especially in the NFC East where everybody's 1-1. They need separation. They need to keep pace if the other teams are winning, or they need to separate if the other teams lose. I like the Redskins at home on Sunday Night Football to actually take care of the Raiders. Then we got Monday Night Football. Dallas Cowboys hitting the road to take on the Arizona Cardinals. Home, primetime, Monday night game for the Cardinals. Too bad they looked like crap the first 2 games they played. Cowboys didn't look good at all last week, but I like the Cowboys over the Cardinals to get it done. Cardinals have not convinced me that they are even going to win 6 games yet. So let's see how they look here against the Cowboys. Pretty interesting game, actually, because I think the Cowboys are very overrated, and I think the Cardinals are still a big question mark. And if they don't come to play at home on Monday night against a team like the Cowboys, they're not going to come to play for the rest of the year. So I think this game will actually say a lot about both of these teams. So those are my picks for week number 3. Be sure to tune in next week when we review all these games and pick all the other ones coming up. Be sure to subscribe for that, and be sure to comment below on your predictions and your thoughts on mine. Sorry if I didn't pick your team. It's all right. They'll be fine. Trust me. I'm not some sort of genius who controls the outcome of games. It's all right if I picked against your team. So thank you all for watching. I will see you all next week.